hot cuppa and relax. It's Afternoon Karak with Aisha Al-Mazmi and Mikhail Atiyah.
On Pulse 95.
Monday. No, wait, it's Tuesday. Goodness. It's Tuesday.
Did we just play a bad case of the Mondays? How did that just seep into Tuesday?
While I was doing the news, I legitimately thought that it is Monday.
Oh, dear.
I'm not even kidding. So if you guys are up to date with what happens in Sharjah, usually the Sharjah Consultative Council, they meet up every Tuesday.
Okay.
That's a regular thing. So when I was doing the news earlier, and I come across, an update, and I saw that, the Sharjah Consultative Council convened today to discuss this and this and that. I was like, why are they convening on Monday? Why would they convene on Monday? What's happening? What's up with Tuesday? And then I was like, wait a second. Then I look at the calendar and it said Tuesday. So I think it has to do with the fact that I'm doing afternoon shifts on Tuesday, and automatically for the past 2 years, I've been doing morning shifts on Tuesday. So it just did not click in my head that today is Tuesday, but that is okay because it's a good surprise because it means that we're closer to the weekend.
That is probably the most elaborate excuse I've ever heard.
It's
but
not an
excuse. I'll give you kudos
it's the
for that.
truth. Okay, listen, you know how we were talking last time about how some things are just automatically in your head and just go on with them and whatnot?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly it. Again,
So you went full autopilot for a day.
I mean, again, it's every single Tuesday, nearly every single Tuesday and Wednesday since I started working here at Pulse 95, I've had a morning shift on Tuesday. So it was very confusing when it clicked in my head eventually, literally maybe 15 minutes ago. I'm not even exaggerating, 15 minutes ago. That it is Tuesday and it's not Monday.
We probably should put a calendar somewhere in the studio here. I think for both of us, because, Aisha's not the only one who gets sloppy sometimes. But guys, tune in.
Why are you taking my limelight?
What do you mean?
We're talking about me right now.
Well, we got
It's not only Aisha who gets it's me as well, Mikhail.
I've had my moments.
Okay, so you can have your moments when you have your moments.
I did kind of have a little technical issue.
It's do not take my spotlight away from me.
It's the whole hour is yours then.
The whole hour is mine, but unfortunately I need to share it with you, which isn't always bad. Sorry, it's Gemini season, and if I don't be chaotic, and when am I going to be chaotic? Is that correct?
I feel like you're chaotic all year round.
I love that, actually. You know how the D&D alignments?
Yeah.
I found out I'm chaotic good, and honestly, that just embodies me. I love it. What about you? What is your D&D alignment?
I have to actually check, but if I
Really?
were to describe myself, and I think you know me very well, I can be chaotic neutral to chaotic evil, maybe?
I think it's chaotic.
Neutral, I'm
makes
chaotic,
sense.
but I don't know why I'm doing it sometimes.
That's very valid. Guys, what are your D&D alignments? If you guys don't know what that is, that's a fun quiz for you guys to check out. Text us 4215 Itsalat or do and tell us all about that. Coming up today is our review of Army of the Dead.
Yes, Zack Snyder's sequel to his zombie flick.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. And
I have something to add, which is why I think we should go into a little spoiler territory. Just a tiny bit.
Just a bit, I know.
Because there's one thing I want to comment on, because I watched a certain video at 6 a.m. today, and I'm like, that's more Zack Snyder than this movie implies. So I cannot wait to talk about that, to say the least.
Also, we're going to be continuing our discussion of Sony Pictures, as there's still more hints about the Spideyverse probably connecting to the MCU. Mm-hmm. And with earlier last week, there was a massive acquisition with Amazon buying out MGM for $8.9 billion.
Yeah, so there's this discussion now. What will Amazon do with this intellectual property that it just acquired, especially the James Bond franchise, and is a James Bond series in the midst. Is that a good idea or not? Now, they did not announce anything, but that's an interesting discussion that we are going to be having right here on the Afternoon Karak. So much fun going on right here, as usual, at the magic hour, known as the Afternoon Karak, only here on Pulse 95.
Is it an epic or epic failure? The Big Review. Movies, games, and TV in focus.
Pulse 95.
If you heard me sniffling, no, you didn't. I promise you it's not because I have a cold. It's just that allergies and whatnot, they just happen. But speaking about allergies and outbreaks, we need to talk about Army of the Dead.
Yes, Netflix just came out with Zack Snyder's latest.
Not just came out. We're a little bit late, aren't we?
I
Just
know.
a tiny
We're
bit
catching up here, but I feel like it still has some relevancy. If you're wondering what this movie's about, why does it have like a top watched label on Netflix? Well, we're going to tell you a little bit about the film, what we thought about it, and we're going to first try to talk about the good things before we get into something that I feel is needs to be discussed. So, Army of the Dead is a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's breakthrough film, kinda.
Yeah.
It's about a zombie outbreak that takes place in Las Vegas as almost the whole city goes into complete chaos. People had to evacuate. The U.S. Army had to come in and basically barricade the entire city, and and what's left of its civilization has now basically become refugees, and so now the people who actually fought during that outbreak to get people out, particularly Dave Bautista's character, is approached by I would say a Japanese investor.
He's an eccentric man who basically says that there is a bunch of money in one of the hotels in a vault, and that it is up to him to get a whole bunch of people to get the money, and it's up to him to even divide it. And he provided him basically with millions and millions of dollars. But the catch is that the place is going to get nuked within the next 2 or 3 days, and they have to get there and come out on their own terms as soon as they can.
So already the premise is great.
It's great. I really enjoyed the idea at the beginning. When we first heard it, I was like, wow, a zombie movie and a heist movie? I mean, I'm intrigued. Count me in. The biggest, I think the biggest plus of this is the ensemble itself. The characters are very colorful. Some were a lot more fun and interesting than others, one of them being Dieter, who we spoke about yesterday. He is absolutely one of my favorite characters. Vanderho as well. He was just lots of fun, to say the least. And I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who's a blogger.
The blogger.
The video blogger.
Forgot his name.
He was also fun. And there's also one scene where all three of them end up working together. And I'm not going to lie, that was the highlight of the movie for me. Just watching them just do their funny thing, their funny shenanigans here and there. It was just hilarious because, well, Vanderho was quite serious, and you've got Dieter, who's a little bit of an outsider. He joins here because of the vault and how he's an expert in vaults and those kind of things. And then you've got a YouTuber who is here just to shoot the zombies and get money.
Yeah, sort of like a weird everyday influencer.
Exactly. So all three of them is just, Mikey. His name is Mikey.
Okay, yes. And then there's also the Coyote, the one who helps guide them through the city.
She was interesting, to say the least. I kind of saw it coming that she was going to get the things she was doing, basically. But the most intriguing part of it is kind of the lore, or I wouldn't say
the zombie
myth.
kingdom itself.
The zombie kingdom.
Yeah.
Like there's sort of, he's the one who kind of started the outbreak. His name is Zeus. And he's quite interesting. He has a queen, and it's whole like there are smarter zombies and there are lesser zombies, and there is like basically a whole backstory to what the zombies are. They're not regular zombies, and I feel like that is very important going on forward when it comes to any sort of zombie material. And I spoke about this back when I was recommending Kingdom, which is a Korean drama based on zombies as well, and how we cannot stick with the Walking Dead sort of zombies, the I want to eat your brains endlessly roaming around
just,
zombies.
Walkers. It just there wasn't much to that. But no, this had classic zombies. It had something called shamblers that whenever the environment gets wet, these dry corpses would actually come to life.
And also something to do with the sun. And that actually goes to the bad things about the movie that we're going to discuss in a little bit. But when it comes for the most of it, it had a sense of adventure. There was thrill. There was very exciting. Even though there was some
thrill is quite short-lived.
Very short-lived, and there were some parts where like, yeah, we know you guys are gonna die and you guys are gonna live. You guys are gonna get bitten. You might have a second chance and then get bitten. You guys are gonna die here. It's just, there was a sense of
predictability to it.
Predictability.
What I couldn't predict though is how stupid things transpire. Really, it has such a great premise. There's a lot of great sequences. They build this whole setup, but then it's all bogged down by its own stupidity. And I think it comes from, and I think it really comes from the writing, you know?
Yes.
Because the characters wind up doing things that are not humanly possible. Like, you would not do this in this situation. It was not logical.
Can I say one thing? And that is, I'm really sorry to Dave, but Scott Ward was the most boring out of all the characters. In comparison to every single one of them, there were some that just felt very one-dimensional. I thought Vanderhoof was going to be that type of character, but he took me by surprise. And again, he is part of the highlight of the entire movie. And like Scott Ward, his daughter, some of the other ones, and even that confession, it's a bit of a spoiler, but it's not that confession. I saw it 10 miles away and I'm like...
No, I did not see it.
And I'm like, why?
I really hated that because...
I really did not like it.
It was like at the last third of this film, things are now getting tense. There's a lot in stake. And then there's just a moment where these characters just stop and have something, they have an emotional moment. I'm like, this is not the time for it. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And it's all to set up something that comes off as unearned.
You can say it's predictable. You can say it's a little bit, again, I saw it coming because it was it made the whole thing like it's boring to say the least. Like just like Mikhail said, the thrill was just taken out completely. Yeah. It's like, okay, now what's next? And
what's next is we're still going to be roasting this film. We talked about the good.
Just like the Shamblers.
We got a little bit into the ugly, but now we're going to get into the bad. Because this movie has a lot of issues. But is it, at the end of the day, is it worth watching or not?
It goes back to that question that we often ask. Does it still hit that mark for its genre? Like, despite the fact that the movie or the content might be boring, it's not worth it maybe, but does it still hit the genre? Is it still entertaining to an extent? Is it worth that one watch?
We'll reveal that right after this short break. So guys, stay tuned right here to the Afternoon Karak.
Pulse 95.
We are continuing our review of Army of the Dead by Zack Snyder. We did say we're going to start off with the good things, and that was literally like 2 minutes, and the next 6 minutes was us just going at it because we felt that as interesting the premise was, as much as whatever the trailer was promising us, at some point we were like, are we seeing that really? I really like the opening sequence. It made me really hyped up. And
the intro, something reminded me of Zombieland, you know?
It gave a hint of silliness, which again, we saw with that trio. But beyond that, it was it felt like it threw the usual tropes you'd see in action genres. And even there was an extra subplot that was supposedly added to... At least we believe it was added to add more maybe thrill or suspense.
There was multiple subplots, and there's...
Way too many.
Way too many, because you have all these characters, you kind of want to give them backstories, but some of them don't really pay off. Matter of fact, there is one subplot that gets revealed, like I would say 3/4 into the movie, and when you find out, if you ask yourself the question... Why did this heist even happen in the first place? It just defeats the entire story.
Actually, I like that. That's the only subplot I feel that was valid, or at least, again, even though it's kind of stereotypical, it's cliched to an
Yeah.
extent, as in when somebody's like, who has a hidden agenda, you kind of somewhat expect it, but I still liked it.
It's a
to
twist.
an extent.
It's a twist that contradicts itself, and
It
it drives
doesn't.
me nuts.
No, it doesn't at all. I love how we're trying to keep it spoiler free, but we will go into spoiler territory a little bit later. We're gonna give you a heads up before we go into it, because there's a discussion that is super important that I want to have with Mikhail after watching a video at 6 a.m. today, this morning.
Okay.
But before that, I need to go back to that subplot. I feel like that is the only subplot that I feel was interesting and had some substance to it that was killed off instantly. And especially since, again, we're trying to keep away from the spoilers. If you talk about the different types of zombies, there was that one zombie that was killed at some point that looked very suspicious.
Which one?
No spoilers.
Okay.
No spoilers.
Are we talking about like one of the more advanced?
It was one of the advanced ones, but it was a little bit too advanced. Hint. I'm not gonna go into it.
Yes.
And it was like a question mark. I was like, wait a second. I had to pause and speak to my friend. I was watching with my friend on Netflix party, and I was like, wait a second. What just happened?
Yeah.
That was weird. That was not normal. And it was also the whole idea of Zeus and the Queen was super cool. But again,
It was a really interesting zombie mythology.
but they weren't explaining anything about the
Yeah.
Shamblers. How did they happen? What is happening? Especially since they were saying that the Shamblers are dehydrated, but also they get affected by the sun. But there was sunlight getting through,
Yeah.
and they easily woke up when they spoke too loud or made too much noise.
Yeah.
So how are they hibernating? Is it the sun? Is it the sound? Or is it water? So what is going on over there?
There's a lot of logic that doesn't get explained, especially after it got set up. And this is one of the issues with this movie, is that there's so much setups with very little payoff, you know? And if we're talking about every character, bit by bit, you just get somewhat frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the main cast, like Dave Bautista. I will give him credit. This is the movie that showed me he has a lot of range as an
Yes,
actor.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
He can really pull off a more emotional role, and he does. I was feeling some parts with him and his
daughter.
conflicting relationship with his daughter, but his daughter is a whole nother issue that I have with.
I don't
this
think anybody liked her. I don't think anybody watched that movie.
She is
and
the
went-
most pointless part of the story.
It was the whole, going full circle thing with the beginning of the movie. Again, we try not to ruin it. With the end, etc. Full circle, etc. Now, we are going to go into spoiler territory, so
Okay.
be aware if you haven't watched it. So, 1, 2, 3, let's go with the spoiler. That is around when they were in the vault, and it's again my favorite trio, Vanderho and Mikey and Dieter. And there was a part when they saw dead people, right? And Vanderho says, is this a time loop thing? And he starts going on with the time loop theory. And I watched
I
a
remember
video
this,
that
yeah.
is actually from Netflix. It is available on YouTube. Check it out. Actually made by Netflix. And they're like, let's talk about the time loop theory. And there were some small hints here and there that were hinting that they might actually be stuck in a time loop. One of them being, if you look at the dead corpses, they were wearing the same things.
The necklace
And whatnot. And if you notice, there was a thing about how Dieter said, this is the third zombie I killed. And then Vanderho says, no, it's your fourth.
Okay.
And it just shows that this might be the fourth loop that they're in.
But then again, it's just right when they set you up with something that crazy and almost like Twilight Zone-ish, it just kind of stops dead
Another
at its
question.
track.
That also something that my friend and I were also talking about. And again, this goes about the ending, so more spoilers. This is a bigger spoiler. And we saw that Vanderho survived. He came out of the vault from the
Absolutely
grave.
impossible.
It was kind of impossible, but I saw it coming as well. I was like, he probably will survive. Otherwise, what's the point of him like dying of hunger in the middle of the place?
I don't know, nuclear fallout, but okay.
That is another thing. I was like, what happened to, is he not going to get affected by the nuclear waste? That was annoying. I agree with you. But then, if you go back to the scenes, he does not get bitten by Zeus.
Well, he did get bitten by...
He didn't.
Okay.
It's revisited that scene in that video, and if you see it, the moment he opens his mouth, Dieter pulls him away, and they actually kind of zoom into the same place.
So we're seeing a different timeline.
That's the thing. Are we
Possibly.
seeing a different timeline? Is it the same Vanderho? What is going on? Is Zack Snyder?
Because that would make more sense. I don't know.
Exactly. And is Zack Snyder just messing with us? Or is it a plot hole?
Besides that, really, Zack Snyder made an interesting film, but one that is very frustrating to watch at times. Again, it has a great premise. It has great action. If you're looking for like over-the-top zombie, just zombie flick, this is the kind of movie. But it's just bogged down by its own stupidity, by characters that really don't pay off at the end, and really pointless subplots, even subplots that contradict the entire story itself.
Come on, that one is a good one. That doesn't
I wish I could talk
contradict
about it here, but we're going to talk about it during the break. But let's get into our final verdict for Army of the Dead.
Again, it goes back to, does it fulfill its job as a zombie flick? It does.
It's dumb, but it's fun. But it's also below average. So
it's below Zack Snyder capabilities.
I think maybe there's too much Zack Snyder. That's what's happened here.
Could be.
The movie also drags on for another 20, 30 minutes than it should have.
Oh, yeah.
So my final verdict for this film is going to be a 4 out of 10.
Oh, goodness. That's way lower than what I'm going.
Yeah.
Again, because it does do a job, I'm going to be a little bit generous. Actually, no, I'm going to say 6.
Okay, a 6. That's reasonable.
I was going to say 7, but then I thought about it. Like, as much as I want to give it a higher score, it's something between 6 and 7, but I'm going to stick with 6.
Would you recommend people to stream it or skip it?
Oh, stream it. Again, because it does its job as a zombie flick. But is it the best zombie flick out there? No,
Not really.
It's not. It's not that great, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Cinematically, it was very interesting. I like that. Again, Zeus and the Queen, super cool, super interesting. But at some point, it drags and it gets boring, and then
it gets stupid.
You would have said
That is I would say, the core theme of this film. It's stupid.
That's mean.
I'm sorry, but if you really are trying to watch this movie, you are going and you start asking questions, you're not going to get answers. This is the problem with this film.
That can easily happen, but we need to stop now, guys. We've been going on for so long about the Army of the Dead. We need to move on to our next story, and that is Sony Pictures executive. We spoke about him yesterday, but apparently he says that there actually is a plan to connect Spider-Man with Sony's a Marvel Studios universe. Let's talk about that coming right up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
Around a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how there was a rumor that MGM is going to be acquired by Amazon, and then obviously it turned out to be not so much of a rumor, but a truth. Well, they were acquired for a good amount of money. This means that Amazon Prime now has a good amount of intellectual properties that will be airing exclusively on that streaming service, and one of them being the James Bond franchise. And this begs the question, could there be a James Bond TV series, and would that be a good idea?
I think it could possibly happen. Amazon has been putting a lot of money into big franchises, Lord of the Rings, The Wheels of Time, and now that they have the catalog of MGM, we're not only talking about James Bond here, we're talking about Creed, we're talking about RoboCop, we're talking about some really classic intellectual properties of the 20th century, almost all coming back for a potential reboot for the 21st century.
But the question remains is that, okay, you can see the same thing about Lord of the Rings and just the entire franchise and just the entire, actually, the content. You have a lot of content in terms of the books and whatnot that usually warrant a TV show. And I'm part of the group of people who believe that books should be turned into TV shows and not movies because they're easier to adapt that way. But James Bond has never been anything but a movie. And since it's sort of a thing that people look forward to, like a movie after movie after movie, and it has a certain formula. So will they break away from the formula and turn it into a TV show?
From what I understand, I think a TV show could possibly adapt the true, I would say, the true sense of Ian Fleming's books because a lot of reviews I read about the James Bond movies is that they do kind of detract from the books quite a bit, but I think the TV show could bring that back and be like a true book adaptation, something that the fans would absolutely love. But a James Bond show, that does sound very enticing.
Absolutely, and especially since they're actually different versions of the books, or different authors have written about James Bond, different versions of James Bond. And since this is the last Daniel Craig James Bond, it means that Amazon just acquired the franchise at the best time ever, because right now, basically, the sky is the limit with where they take this franchise. And the sky is the limit for us, or is it not? Because, well, time is linear and we need to wrap up the show with a suggestion from Mikhail. So stay tuned for that and so much more right here on the Afternoon Karak.
It's almost 5 p.m.
That was Afternoon Karak.
For dessert,
Aisha and Mikhail suggest
I feel that one day somebody who's interested in physics is going to text us and say, Aisha, time is not linear. Stop saying that. But what I mean is that the time passes and we need to move on and get on with things. And sometimes you get busy and you miss out on the show, and that is okay, because we do have our podcasts that go up on wherever you listen to podcasts. And that means Spotify, and Rami, SoundCloud, and also Apple Podcasts. Just search up Afternoon Karak and you will find the episode up there, and you will be, in tune with us. You'll be in sync with us. You'll know all our jokes and so much more. And if you also want to see our faces and our expressions from earlier when we were talking about Army of the Dead, you can also check out Pulse 95 Radio, the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and comment. We'd love to hear from you. And also love to hear from Mikhail and his new suggestion today.
So it's a very simple suggestion, but it's one that I've learned the hard way many times, and that is whenever you cover your bin with a garbage bag, honestly, I suggest to put another garbage bag just in case that you might fill up the whole bin with heavy-duty waste. And usually when you pick it up, and depending on what sort of bag you bring, it can rip and tear and leave this,
How many times did that happen to you?
A couple of times. And I also learned the hard way not to leave the garbage bags outside the house, because cats come in, they rip it apart.
Yes.
And then it makes it even worse. I have to pick up whatever's in the bag, So that way, I recommend you guys to just double down on putting 2 bags in 1 bin, so whenever you're dealing with heavy-duty waste, you can dispose it without any kind of leakage.
Or high quality, like some really good heavy-duty waste bags, so you don't need to deal with it at all. And that is actually, when you leave stuff outside, that is how you actually accidentally create a rat problem as well. So be careful.
Oh dear.
Lots of animals roaming around, so anything can happen. I know we live in a desert. You say we don't have raccoons, but we do have stray cats and stray dogs, etc. and etc. But the fun continues here on Pulse 95 with Yalla Home. Anna Schofield, Big House, pick up the momentum. They're going to be keeping you entertained from 5 p.m. till 8 p.m. only here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.